Hello and welcome back to the channel everyone. From the last few videos, we are discussing and elaborating on the political thought and idea of liberty. Liberty, as we have seen in a state or in a society, is governed by many forces. There are many forces that can alter an individual's liberty and freedom, a state's liberty and freedom, a society's liberty and freedom. But one entity stands out from all of them. And today we discuss the relationship of economy on liberty. And the political thinker to expose this was Friedrich A. Hayek. Hayek wrote his famous work, The Road to Serfdom. In this book, he exposed the link between planned economies and political repression. The book was published in 1940. It became an instant hit in Britain. But also in America, the book became an instant bestseller and is considered to be a finely worked out masterclass on freedom and market system. The book had great impact on political leaders like Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, Milton Friedman, and many in Central Europe. And that gave birth to what we call as the free market economy, especially after the post-Soviet revolutions. According to Hayek, a policy that ultimately adopts the principles of competition and markets and prices as its ordering principle, this is the one that is bound to succeed. And this is the core principle of free market economy. We see that in the last part of the 19th century and the earlier part of the 20th century, Europe's political space was dominated by the idea of socialism. And socialism to its core requires central planning. In Europe, socialist parties like Austria and Germany viewed the free market trade of Britain as a conspiracy to dominate the globe. And the values of individualism, liberalism, democracy, and capitalism were viewed as British liberal values. Hayek believed that it is ultimately the markets that provide the liberty to the individuals when set free onto its natural forces and onto its inclination. But it is the government planning and interference of the state into the market system that ultimately crumbles liberty. And from where the two political ideas diverge, the socialism which believes that you need a system that centrally plans, organizes, gives direction and coordinates the activities of the state and society. Whereas the liberals believe to allow the free forces of competition to achieve good in the society. And this can only be done with least possible control. By the end of 1928, Hayek says 50% of the national income of the Germans were controlled by the German government. This was the enormous impact of government or state interference into any economy. And what we see today with the liberal values and the neoliberalism coming into the market and liberal forces of economy given a chance to boom on their own with market forces, what we see is that the world today, where majority of the money of the society and world is being governed and is with the big multinational corporations and the few billionaires that are there in the world. The adverse effects of the two systems are clear and evident after the systems have been into work and in place. Rule of law, he says, doesn't mean just that the society is governed by rules and laws, but he says that it is governed, or the rule of law keeps this government power under check by the means of what we call as the constitution or the laws that are framed. And these laws are framed well in advance to the government that has come into power. And this is a natural way or a natural protection given to the society by these laws. And this is what he warns against when a government comes into power and tries to change the very basic laws. He says this is a trap that leads us into totalitarian regimes. This is what Stalin did to Russia, and this is what Hitler did in Germany. When he came into power, he changed the very constitution and the laws that were keeping the government in power under checks and balances. This is what is the great fallibility that the road to serfdom discusses. It discusses the idea how a society or a government falls into the trap of an authoritarian government. He says that the central planning, this is where Soviet Union and Germany went wrong, where the central planning interfered with the free operation of the market and ultimately giving rise to an authoritarian challenge. But a very important question that arises after the road to serfdom was that some amount of central planning is definitely definitely required for a healthy functioning of a society or a state, or it can give rise ultimately to economic anarchy. And this was the question that Maynard Keynes asked Friedrich Hayek, that where should be the line drawn between government planning and the working of the corporations. Hayek could not come up with the answer immediately. It took him years to formulate the answer, and ultimately he came up with the answer in his book The Constitution of Liberty, which was published in 1960, which clearly indicated where the line needs to be drawn between the government and the free market forces. The book was very influential amongst the political right wing. The 20th century and the 21st century saw the advent of what we call as the free trade and free market. And liberal economy is at the heart of discussion even today. But having gone on a full experiment of implementing liberal economy, what we see is the adverse effects of liberal economy coming into play, where you have the maximum resources of any nation being controlled and governed, and the money and economy being governed by the big corporations and the entrepreneurs and the big billionaires. A great divide is there between the poor and the rich, and the state planning seems to be hijacked by these big corporations interfering and meddling into the work of the state and law. And that is where a question that needs to be addressed today and an answer that needs to be sought to the problem. So this was about the political ideas and theories of Friedrich A. Hayek, the road to serfdom, the role of economy and free market, and the state planning on liberty and individual freedom. Hope that you have enjoyed our video and hope you find this information helpful to you. Do feel like subscribing to our channel and hope to see you soon with the next video. Till then, thank you very much.